Hi everyone, welcome to class 4 of our super cozy simple socks. Here we are ready to pick up our stitches and get back to working in the round on our heel after we've just finished turning our heel in class 3. So this is class 4. Should be where we're all at. So just having a look here at your sock, the way it's orientated, we've got these stitches here. We've got 14 stitches left over from our heel, and we've got 22 stitches that we left on these two needles for our instep stitches. Okay, so what's going to happen now is we are going to pick up and knit 11 stitches or thereabouts up the left side. Actually, technically, when you're wearing the sock, this would be up the right side of the foot, but as it's facing us, this is the left side of the heel as it's appearing to us. And what we're going to do, I'm actually going to put my spare needle down because we're going to do something that sometimes people don't understand what they're asking for when they tell you to pick up and knit stitches at the same time. But this is how I do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the needle that has our yarn attached to it here, and we're actually going to use it to pick up and knit the stitches we need up the edge of our sock here. And stitches wise, we're actually going to pick up 2 parts of each stitch. You know how a stitch sort of is like a V? You've got a right leg and a left leg of the V. We're going to pick up both parts of each V of the stitch as we go, but I'll show you what I mean as we go here. So I'm going to get nice and close here so that you can see what I'm talking about here. We're just going to go in. See, here's the stitch that my needle has sort of come out of here, and we are going to stick the needle literally right through the very next two legs of the V, but one V worth of the next stitch. We're going to stick our needle through that V, and then we're actually going to wrap and knit, use our thumb almost like it was a needle, and pop, oops, hang on, I'll try that again, pop this stitch right through. Okay, there it is there. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to the next V, and we're going to knit it on. Stick your needle through the V and knit it on. So this is 3 stitches. And if you're looking at your knitting, you're grabbing the loops, literally they are right at the very edge of your work. So this is one loop here, this is one loop here, or one V here, and so on. So we'll go to the next one here, grab it, and knit it. I'm sort of using my finger too to poke the stitches through. I'm using my hand, my left hand, like it was a needle. And this is the sort of thing too, as you're doing it, you can sort of go along a little ways and think, okay, yeah, I'm doing good. Or if you don't like how a stitch looks, just pop your needle out and try picking up again. And you can see I've got a nice little ridge running along here that looks, you know, the same for each stitch, which means technically I'm doing good. I'm picking up the same loops and working into them. And that way I've got the same ridge of stitches showing here. Okay, so I'm going to grab the next one here, which is this guy right here. Some people only pick up one part of the V. I just find it's a little bit more stable and has a little bit more body if you pick up both parts. There's no right or wrong way, I don't think. And like I said, we're picking up about 11 stitches along the edge, but I always sort of eyeball it. If I get to the end and I could pick up 12 stitches in the gap, that's fine too. It really doesn't matter if you need to pick up an extra stitch, or if you're only able to pick up 10, not the end of the world either. I'm going to grab one more here, and then I'm going to count and see how many I managed to get, because technically it looks like, oh, there's a huge gap here, and there is, and I'll show you what we're going to do in a minute, but technically this virtually is the end of those, our heel flap stitches, and technically if we were to connect things up again now in the round, most of this little gap would close, because this stitch here actually belongs technically at the same height as this row here. But let's just see where we're at. I had 14 to start, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I got 12 in the gap rather than 11. So I'm going to go with that. And I'm literally, what I'm going to do next, we're going to knit across these 22 instep stitches. But what we're going to do, just before we do that, to make it a little bit easier to work, we're going to slide 11 of those stitches back onto the other needle, so that all of our 22 instep stitches are on the same needle. Okay, so there is 22. Okay, and now we're just literally going to knit across those 22 stitches. So just like I was knitting normally in the round before, on my cuff, I'm just going to take one of my empty needles, and I'm going to start knitting my instep stitches, and I'm going to do the first couple stitches nice and firm. And one thing I was going to tell you too, when you're working in the round, sometimes you can get what they call a ladder in your work, which is sort of a little line happens right between your needles. You get a little line. People talk, oh, I always get ladders when I knit on double pointed needles. So I've got a little trick for you. If you knit your first 2 stitches, firmly, if you take and knit your 3rd stitch after you've changed from one needle to the other, if you really reef on that 3rd stitch, that closes any ladder that you might be inclined to get. People think, oh, if I'm really, really tight on the 1st stitch and the 2nd stitch, I won't get ladders. But it's actually the 3rd stitch that's, for whatever reason, seems to deal with ladders when you're working on double pointed needles. So that's just a little trick that works for me. Okay, so we're knitting our 22 stitches on our instep. We get to the end of our row. Okay, so now we've got our stitches, all of our heel stitches still on this needle, plus the 12 that I picked up here. And then I've knitted my 22 stitches here. Now we're going to do the same thing on this side of the heel, except we are going to use one of our spare needles now on this one. This is just going to make it easier. So what we're going to do is, again, there's a couple different ways you could do it, but I like to take my spare needle in my right hand, and again, just like we did on the other side, I'm going to pick up the stitch along the edge, and then I'm going to use my thumb, my left hand, and my left thumb, almost like it was a needle, to lift the stitch over. Okay, so, and along here, same thing, we're going to pick up 2 parts of each V, so we have a nice stable spot to have our edge. And I think there again, you sort of eyeball it and think, okay, which one am I going to grab first? I think on this one, I think I'm going to grab, which one? I think I'll grab this one first, just to make sure that I've got my gap closed. So you stick your needle through, wrap, and then use your thumb, pull nice and tight on this one so that you pull your yarn down and pull your yarn through. And then same thing, we're just going to go all the way along and pick up those V's. And we'll see how many we get here. We'll probably get about 12, maybe 13, I don't know. And like I say, it's sort of it's not the end of the world if you end up with one more or two more or one less picked up stitches along your heel. Not big deal, not a big deal in the long run at all. And remember too, if you're local and you know you're having a bit of trouble and you're like, oh my goodness, I don't really know what I'm doing here. You're partway through a row of something and you're not sure, just pop into the shop. We're open 11 till 4 these days, Monday to Saturday, and yeah, just pop in. You can always come pick our brains anytime. And I think I'll get one more here, right here. Okay, let's see how many we got there. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. That's okay. I'm not going to worry about that. And I'm going to tell you how, after you get going back in the round here, if you've got one extra stitch here or one extra stitch here, doesn't matter. It's all going to come out in the wash once we get going back in the round here. So we've got, looking at things here, we've still got our heel stitches all on the one needle. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to knit the first 7 stitches of our heel onto the end of this needle. And that's just going to balance everything out a little bit better. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so now we are back in working in the round for the foot. Okay, we've gone from working flat on the heel to working back in the round. And now we can sort of redesignate our needles now, because we sort of need to know now which is needle 1, needle 2, and needle 3. So this next needle we're going to start working on is needle 1. The instep stitches are always, from now on, are always needle 2, and the stitches that we just picked up on this side are needle 3. So needle 1, needle 2, needle 3. Okay. So yeah, so go ahead and do that. We won't be posting tomorrow, Sunday, so we'll post again on Monday evening at 7 o'clock, and we will go from there. So yeah, have fun with that. And like I say, don't overthink it. If you are picking up and you manage to pick up 14 stitches up the side there, great. If you can only manage to pick up 10, that's fine. Don't worry about it. I'll give you some tips and tricks for how to deal with that in a row or two. And this is your first sock. Doesn't have to be perfect, not the end of the world. This is totally just sort of nailing the concept of what's going on here. And we'll leave perfectionism for maybe for sock pair number 2. How's that? So have fun with that, and we will see you on Monday evening. Bye.